Hall 175 book review, written by Bill Tamalonis 76. We're also joined by Mr. Thaler and Mr. Heydrich. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is a pleasure to have three legends amongst us today. So both of you were featured in the book. Bill, you did extensive research on the book. Tell us about the experience of putting it all together.
Well, I'd say it was a great blessing for me personally. As you know, we started a couple of years ago getting going, but just my whole experience, I think, learning more about Calvert Hall and the rich history, but also just the impact it has had on so many people's lives, beyond what I ever knew as a student or even as an alum. And, just the help I got along the way from Brother Joe up at the archives at LaSalle University. I had to spend a couple of days and nights there. Felt like a Christian brother for a couple of days there. That was a lot of fun. They were just very welcoming and helpful. And then just to hear, I think the absolute highlight was I must have spoken with about 60 plus different people, faculty, alumni, parents, and just to hear their stories was heartwarming. Like I would just come back and tell my wife, "You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe that." And I was a student there. I had a son that went there, but still, there was so much more I learned about just the great things that have happened at Calvert Hall, and the impact on so many lives beyond what you would ever know. Was just a real blessing and an inspiration to me.
Outstanding. We also have Brother John in the waiting area, so we're going to pull him in here in a moment. But Mr. Thaler, tell us about your 46 years experience at the Hall.
Well, I wasn't supposed to work at the Hall. I was supposed to work for NSA, which is where my father worked. And I had gone to NSA and gone through all the tests and all the psychological tests and everything. And I was going to work for them. And I received a call at the beginning of May of that year that President Nixon had put a hiring freeze on. And it was for at least a year. So I had to get another job. I mean, I had already gotten a job down at NSA. I had to get another job because I was getting married in August and everything. And I sent out applications to all the Catholic schools, and Calvert Hall was one of the schools that responded to me. And as soon as I walked in, Brother John Moore, Brother Stephen Pleva, Bill Karpovich, all made it very, very welcoming for me. And after a year there, I got a call from NSA saying your job is available, and I can still remember the words I used. I said to them, "No, thank you. I found a home." And that started the 46 years that I spent at Calvert Hall. I never worked for a day. I never had a morning that I got up and I said, "Oh God, I don't want to go to work today." Never. And it was just great for me, I assume for the kids, and I just had a fun time and a great time. And you learn a lot from the students as much as they learn from you.
The late, great Augie Maselli also shared your sentiments. He shared during his celebration before his retirement that he never worked a day in his...
Oops.
Hello, Joseph. I don't think I can hear you, Joseph. I can't hear anyone, I don't think.
Yeah.
I can hear you, John.
I can hear you, Bill. Okay, good.
Good.
Sorry about that, guys. We had a slight difficulty there, but we're back and we're good.
Hello, Danielle.
Hello. Sorry about that. We had a small hiccup there, but we're all good.
Joe was flashed up temporarily.
Yes.
Right when you went out.
Okay, well, he logged in as me, so we were having a bit of a hiccup.
I cannot hear Danielle.
You can't hear
I
me,
can
Lou.
hear you, Lou.
I can't hear Danielle.
Oh, back to Joe.
I'll be back again. I'll be back again.
Same result.
Oh, now it's the
Not
three of
yet.
us.
Yeah. Well, as a student, I had both Mr. Thaler and Mr. Heydrich, and they were both. Oh, there's Brother John.
Aha.
I'm not sure what's happening here, but I'm happy to join you. I've been watching
not
from
either.
the wings here, and I know Bill was just getting started. But just as a president, I just want to say, and then we'll go right back to Bill's story. But there are a lot of legends up here and in the room, and I'm happy to be with you. We're talking about 175, and one of the things I don't know if we've held it up yet, the wonderful book that Bill did. And I think the nicest thing that I can say about that is, when you plan something like this, you can have a history type textbook with lots of data and things in there. We wanted that, but we wanted was the story. And this, Bill, you did a tremendous job capturing the story and the stories of Calvert Hall over the 175 years. And certainly, Lou, you and John are two of those great legends and spent a good bit of that 175 with us. So, Bill, you were just starting to talk. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead about your days.
I was just ad-libbing while we were waiting for.
Well, maybe on us right now for the time being. We'll have to keep each other entertained.
Yeah. But no, I just wanted to say how instrumental both Mr. Thaler and Mr. Heydrich were in my life. In fact, I often credit Mr. Heydrich for when I took your economics class, that's what got me interested in going to business school. And so that really kind of set me on my path in life. So, but that was after having Brother Burns' physics class, which convinced me there's no way I was capable of being an engineer. So, not that you were second choice, but you helped me find my real path. So, and calling. So, I appreciate that.
Somebody once said to me, the brothers were very good in history, helping young men find out what they should not do for a career, as well as what they should do.
Yeah. Well, that's half the battle.
Well, maybe just as we're waiting, I don't know what Joe wants to do, but talk a little bit, Lou and John, about your time over the years, and what did you see over those years change, stay the same, develop? Maybe just go to Lou. Why don't you start?
Yeah. John started talking about how he, came to teach at Calvert Hall. I wasn't sure when I got out of college what I wanted to do. I was interviewing with life insurance companies, and I had sent applications to Calvert Hall in St. Joe. And I guess it was September, Calvert Hall called me and said they had an opening and they were changing the schedule around a little bit. And I came in to teach senior English composition, which was really not my major, but in those days, I think they filled a hole where they could. And my brother, who had gone to Calvert Hall and was teaching English at Calvert Hall, I guess gave him my name or whatever. But once I got to Calvert Hall, met the brothers who really guided me through those early years when I was really struggling. I agree with John and what Danielle said about Augie. I just love going to work every day. I thought I'd go to Calvert Hall and try teaching to see if I liked it. In fact, when I got my master's degree, I got an MBA because with my economics background, I thought, well, might go in business eventually or whatever. But once I got to Calvert Hall, like John, I never even thought about leaving. And, a lot of things changed, to answer brothers' questions. A lot of things changed over the years as far as, pedagogy and, lecture seminar and, facilities and all that. But as we all know, the charism of the LaSalle brothers and the mission of Calvert Hall really has never changed. And that's what really, I think, kept me coming back every year, is that I just loved what I was doing. I loved the mission, and I thought that everybody had bought into the mission, and we were all kind of going through this together. And I really had a great time. I enjoyed every minute of every year. maybe I didn't enjoy every minute. There may have been some struggles, but you know.
Yeah, you were an administrator. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's one or two things that have happened.
Yeah, but one of the things that I did as administrator, I always kept a class, and I always considered myself a teacher, and I loved that part of the day because I did enjoy probably every minute of every day in the classroom. You know, I think you're right, Brother John. Sometimes in administration there were some issues that maybe you didn't enjoy, but and Bill, I think it's interesting you say you saw all those stories. You know, I think that's what Calvert Hall is. You hear more of those stories, the same things come out. Like John and Augie and I all said we never worked a day in our life. I mean, you know, I think you'll find that true. And kids, I mean, I think the caring factor that the teachers showed really will come through when you talk to kids, you know, and their experience. And I think it's not surprising that you were touched by those stories. At least to me, it's not.
Yeah. Before John speaks, I want to point out too, is I think many of you would know, is that both John and Lou hold a very great distinction within the Christian Brothers. Both have been affiliated, so you may see at their name AFSC, affiliate member of the Brothers. Their distinguished careers in education led the Brothers to bestow on them our highest honor. And I think we'd all agree that the one other person that we aren't able to have here also was affiliated at the same time as John was the beloved Augie who we're talking about. But John, have you seen changes over your period of time at Calvert Hall? Or
Oh, definitely. And the biggest change has been technology. The technology in the math department has been explosive since about when I started, about 1970, 69 or 70. The computers were just starting to come in, and we were just starting to get computer courses at the college level. In fact, I remember at night we had to go up to the top floor of Maryland Hall down at Loyola College my senior year and share the computer that was at Johns Hopkins. And we had big tapes and long, and that's how you put the programs in. And we were there till 2 a.m. sometimes trying to get things to work and everything, because Johns Hopkins had control of the computer during the day and we had it at night. And the technology just kept going. All the stuff that we used to do, all the stuff that you used to do, extrapolation with trigonometry, it's all computerized now. You don't even do that stuff. There's an algorithm for finding a square root that nobody knows except like three people in the world. But because you don't need it anymore, you just hit square root on the calculator and it tells you the square root to God knows how many spaces. And the technology has really mushroomed and exploded, and it's allowing us to do a lot more in math than we used to do.
Yeah, and Bill, you know, again, I appreciate you. Obviously, you've been connected to Calvert Hall. You're a loyal alum. But could you talk a little bit about what struck you, or were there things in your and I know for a fact the amount of research you did for the book and travel and even going up to LaSalle University, spending time in the archives. Are there things that struck you that maybe you didn't think about or didn't have a concept of with Calvert Hall and get preparing and writing the book?
I think, two things jump to mind. One is what Mr. Heidrich alluded to, of the consistency of the mission over the years. I guess as a student, I didn't realize so much about the origin of the school. That St. De La Salle founded it to teach poor boys and give them an opportunity for an education that they might not otherwise have, and that ties in with what I think is the remarkable thing, that after 175 years of the Calvert Hall existing, but that mission goes back 300 years.
Right.
And we are still very true to that mission. And I don't think there are many organizations or institutions in the world that you could say that. So to stay true to that mission, but yet be able to adapt with things like technology, with different teaching methods, different cultural norms, that's just a remarkable accomplishment that the Calvert Hall has been able to pull off. And I just credit the leaders and the faculty and staff for being able to do that, to adapt, but yet stay true. And then I think the second thing, again, is tied in with that is I really had no concept of how much help is there at Calvert Hall from top to bottom for a student, whether it's financial aid. I think one of my favorite stories that I think really brings this home is just with Charlie Rogers and now with Eric Rogers, how here you've got the maintenance staff involved in not only recruiting students, finding students that would be a good fit, giving them the kind of opportunity that St. De La Salle would want to give, but then being involved in mentoring them. In Charlie's case, providing summer jobs for them. I mean, I had no idea, and stories about teachers and staff giving them, make sure they had a sport coat and a tie and football cleats. I remember, the story of the coach taking off his cleats and giving it to a player. Just remarkable dedication and way talk about going the extra mile that the faculty and staff does for the students to give them an opportunity that really changed their lives and changed generations in their families' lives from then on.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm the guy that's been around the least. I mean, 6 years. I've been a brother for over 40, and my experience at Calvert Hall goes back to when I first joined, coming down here. And Calvert Hall sometimes hosted district-wide celebrations. I remember when the Knott Center was first built. We had a thing called District Day. Brother Rene was here, and he insisted that the brothers were coming to see this new building, when that opened. And of course, it was spectacular. And I didn't get back enough, and I can't remember. I came back when I met with board people when we were considering becoming president, and I looked at the campus and I said, "Oh my goodness, look at what's happened." And thanks to so much generosity of alums continuing and donors, even since I've been here, we've been able to do some things. So the place has changed. I appreciate the stories. Maybe, go back, Lou or John, are there characters that stand out that we haven't discussed, or favorite stories you have about Calvert Hall? They could be funny, or they could be, well, some may not still be able to be told. They may still be under the cover of secrecy. But what are some of the things that you remember that were big time things that amazed you, or excited you?
I think there were a lot of characters. In athletics, we had John Sanborn as a trainer who was legendary for his antics, and we had Jack DeFat as the gardener, and he used to run the truck across the field to tell the kids to stop walking on the grass. And obviously you have a lot of teachers through the years that were noted for their little idiosyncrasies and so forth. But I think Charlie Rogers is one of my favorite all-time Calvert Hall people because both my boys worked for him in the summer. They went here to school, and in the summer they worked for him. And I really feel that, sometimes he guided them and listened, and they, made them listen to him, maybe in ways that I, as a father, was not successful doing. And, he took everybody under his wing. He really did help people. And I think all of us that were on the staff at that time realized it, but I think that's just a typical example of a caring person at Calvert Hall. So I know John might have some other people that he thinks were a little unique. Or
Well, I have two stories for you.
Go ahead, John.
One of them is an alumnus that I had early in my career in my class, who shall remain anonymous because he wants to be anonymous, used to send me a $50 bill every week. And the instructions were to give it to Brother Kevin Strong to give to the kid who needs something. And I never disclosed who that person is, but it stopped after about 4 or 5, 6 years. But every week he would send me a $50 bill, and I would give it to Brother Kevin and just say, go give this to a kid to get a coat or to get lunch or whatever whatever you need, because Kevin was the go-to guy that a lot of the kids went to when they needed things done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we still have the Brother Kevin Strong Scholarship, which really is designed to assist those students in most need. And I think coming out of his time, we even really have to this day a presidential hardship fund, which can be
Right.
used to help kids with tuition. But also, we have done other things for young men. And I think maybe I'm going to ask. I'll come back to diversity in a minute, but I'll ask Bill. You know, again, I love the stories, and when you asked me to write the conclusion, because what you had done with so many stories, my comments were about the story of Calvert Hall, and that story continues. I absolutely love the introduction. You know, there was something I had no idea that we have that this Joseph Hico comes here and the way he got here, and it's brilliant to start it that way. Were there any, like, in your research, were there some favorite stories that you found that you included, or that, like, wow, this was really neat?
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, the Joseph Hico one is certainly a good one. I have to credit Brother Joe Grabenstein up at LaSalle for tipping me off to that one. And I think that's kind of epitomizes to me the Calvert Hall mission. You know, that here's a boy who was shipwrecked from a foreign country, finds his way to Baltimore, and ends up at Calvert Hall and turns into a, you know, they call him the father of Japanese journalism. You know, so what a success story there. We mentioned Charlie Rogers, but I think there's a couple stories that epitomize, I think, the Calvert Hall mentality. I think Mr. Frank Bramble would be one, someone from a very humble background, wasn't sure that, you know, he could afford Calvert Hall, but came, had a great experience with a couple of teachers that really steered him in the right direction, and ended up being very successful, but also spent the rest of his career giving back to Calvert Hall with time, with scholarships and all. But you know, people from very humble backgrounds who, because of their interaction with Calvert Hall, became very successful, but never forgot about you know, where they came from and where the credit belongs. And Devin Collins also, who was a young man from Baltimore City. I think he said he spent time in every foster home in the city. You know, found his way to Calvert Hall, was given a chance, ended up winning the McCormick Unsung Hero Award. Didn't even know he was nominated. I think the coach told him, you know, hey, put your tie on. We're taking you to a dinner tonight. He had no idea he was going. He had no idea he was going to win. But you know, it has turned into a very, and it was because of his character. He wasn't even a starting player, wasn't a star on the team, but the coach referred to him as really the sort of the spiritual leader of the team. And so just things like that, just the unsung heroes who came from very humble backgrounds, but Calvert Hall just put them on a whole different trajectory that you know, made a huge difference in their lives and the lives of their families.
Yeah. Lou and John, again, all three of you have just really talked briefly about the different backgrounds of the kids that have come through Calvert Hall over the years. And I think, you know, sometimes the notion in a community as well, you know, Calvert Hall is this elite prep school, Catholic prep school, you know, sort of on a hill in the suburbs. And while we want to say I think academically we'll compete with anybody, we've never seen ourselves that way from the time we were in the city till even after we moved out here, and a commitment to diversity in both your experiences over the years. Can you speak to that and how that you think it has been part of Calvert Hall over the years?
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things I liked about Calvert Hall and why I stayed at Calvert Hall. I think it is not a, you know, an elitist type of school. And you asked before about the changes. You know, a lot of boys a little before my time that came to Calvert Hall, particularly when it was downtown, were Highlandtown, Canton young men. And when we moved out here, the bus came up in the back driveway, the MTA bus, and most of our kids rode the bus to Calvert Hall, out from downtown to Calvert Hall. And if you look a little later along the fence in one of the yearbook pictures, you'll see about 20 or 25 bicycles that kids in the neighborhood, used to ride on their bikes and chain them to not the nice wrought iron fence we have now, but the chain link fence when it was there. And so now, obviously, people come, as school moved here, they came from this area primarily, and now they come really from a much farther distance. I know Joe always talks about the number of zip codes, but, we have Glendon and we have, Bel Air and, Anne Arundel County or whatever. So I think if you put all those people in one building from all those different neighborhoods and zip codes, you really do have diversity. And I think that's a hallmark of the Christian Brothers of Calvert Hall. And, I think that's one of the greatest strengths of the school. One of the things that I like the most about the school anyway.
I had a young man in my class who came from Frederick. Now, come
Got a
on.
few from Frederick County even now. Yeah.
This is from the town of Frederick.
Right.
And I also had one young man who I used to say to him, it was a tough ride to get it in from Howard County. And he would say, my mother used to drop me off on her way to her job in Virginia.
So it wasn't that bad.
Excuse me? That's ridiculous. That's dedication. And I think that Calvert Hall has epitomized the fact that we are every man's school, and we can accommodate everybody. And you don't have to be of a certain class to come to Calvert Hall. You can be of any group that you want to, and still come to Calvert Hall and get a good education and be ready for college.
We'll talk about too. I was going to. Joe Baker has a line that he uses all the time. I don't know if he stole this from you or whatever, John. When we talk too, there's some of that diversity is not everybody is the straight A student when they walk in the door, and how the number of kids we've had develop academically. Once again, Lou, you can jump in here. I think Joe's line is, you can take what you earn. So how we have young men walk in the door that are taking, and again, we're college prep courses, but wind up in AP and develop their academic strengths while they're here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had students come to my AP in freshman year and be a little deficient in mathematics, and later on they're in the honors courses and they're in the AP courses in junior and senior year. That's a relatively common thing that we have at Calvert Hall, and it's great for the kids. You get the help you need. We teach the student first and the subject second.
That was my next line I was going to come to. That we steal from you all the time.
And what we do is we take care of the kids. We take care of them. And if they need extra help at the end of the day, as Augie used to say, 9th period, 7th period, 8th period, 9th period, it doesn't matter. He was there all the time to help the kids.
I think care is the factor that holds everything together, and that Christian Brothers philosophy, LaSalle philosophy, is to take students where they are, and I think that's what Calvert Hall does. And since the teachers care so much about the students, they see that, and I think they respond. If you look at literature and you talk about small classes or technology or whatever, that's all great, but the number one factor in educating young people is care. And I think that the Christian Brothers in Calvert Hall have that bottled. I mean, I think that is the difference in Calvert Hall than a lot of other schools.
I appreciate that. And Bill, you mentioned a man like Frank Bramble, who actually is one of my heroes and who was a great mentor to me when I first became a president. He had been the interim president before chair of the board. And I think if you look at the definition of humility, he's that as successful as he has. But when you were a student, what was the sense you had? Yeah, can you define or say to the people, especially since you've done all this research, but reflecting on your student days, about what the sense of the brotherhood was, and how, what that meant, and how that's carried on, since you graduated in 1976. What it means to you today, these many years later.
Yeah, I think the sense of brotherhood. I was trying to think back. I don't know how many days of school I missed in my 4 years, but it couldn't have been. I'm sure it's less than a handful. I just did not want to miss. And I think you can with the diversity and with the amount of things that you can get involved with, both academically and extracurricular and sports. I just made a lot of friends I had different groups of friends, from classrooms, from hanging out in the cafeteria, from working on the hall. And so I just enjoyed being at school every day. And those friendships, carried forward. That whether there's networking events and just keeping in touch with people. You're there when their parents pass away. I mean, it just keeps their kids end up. Some of our kids end up going to Calvert Hall together, so we kind of reunite. But there was just a sense of everybody being on each other's team, and like you said, Brother John, it's not all academics. There are plenty of ways to succeed, and I think I felt like I had support of my friends for anything I did. Like, there wasn't just one particular mode model you had to follow to be accepted at Calvert Hall. There was plenty of, they cheered me on in everything I did. And so, those relationships really have carried through over those years to the point where, that's how I ended up doing the book. Frank Kelly III connected me with Joe, who was a classmate, and Danielle. And so, here we are, 50 years later, almost, and still being involved in Calvert Hall because of those connections from my days as a student.
So we certainly appreciate that. I think, one of the things that struck me is what you said, and it's been my experience in 6 years. And I do believe that it's something that has to do with our Lasallian values and the brothers in the background, because I've experienced it at other schools that I've been. A lot of people, because of the success of athletics and the publicity it gets, and sometimes people that don't know Calvert Hall see us as, wow, a very successful athletic school. And by the way, we are, and love it. I can't tell you how much I like winning and being at things. But I think you touched on an important point: is it doesn't matter whether you're in athletics or not. The kids we have the best music program in the region, and the kids are in that. Robotics, theater, all these different clubs. Kids find their own way, and it's not as if you have to be, nobody gets boxed in to one spot. And we encourage our students. Actually, it was a video we did a year or so ago. We have a wonderful senior that does a lot of videos, and it was like, the challenge at Calvert Hall is to step outside your box. The challenge at Calvert Hall is to, while you're here, do something new. And then the stories you're telling, I remember early on, he's been very, very generous to Calvert Hall in my 6 years. And before that, told me the story that when he was a student, and he was in probably the early 70s, that he became friends with someone. They had lunch every day. He says, I came from a very successful family. My tuition was being paid. I went. We all wore suit coats that were beat up in those days or whatever. Everybody looked the same. And this guy became my friend. And I had money to buy lunch every day. But this guy, his mother was making lunch for him every day. And she really was good, what she made. So he was like sharing his lunch with me. And I only realized after we graduated that he was getting lunch. He couldn't afford to buy lunch. And I was eating half his lunch. And, and I'm sitting there thinking I could go back but he said, it said something to me about the fact that we were so different in our backgrounds, yet no one noticed that. That I didn't even realize it till we were getting ready to graduate, that he really came from a different place. And I think and I hope that's what we continue to do. So, I appreciate that. As we're getting further on, tell me one thing, we'll go around each of you. in your time, most of you, Bill, you're a grad, and we're all over 40 years beyond, or service. What stands out the most? What would be the one thing, if you're saying to people and sharing your story about Calvert Hall, what would it be? What do you want to tell people? Lou, I'll start with you and put you on the spot first. Maybe, did we lose you, Lou? John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Lou, can you hear me? Lou can't hear me. Lou, can you hear John?
Lou, can you hear me?
Okay. Not sure what's going on here now. And I know Danielle is in the background somewhere doing her thing. Well, John, we're switching over to you. What do you think? What would you say? We just boxed out Lou.
The real thing I think that epitomizes Calvert Hall is the graduation ceremony at the end of the year. It doesn't matter which class it is; it's just flawless. It's very impressive. All the students dressed up in cap and gowns, all the faculty dressed up in cap and gowns with the appropriate caps on. And when we file into the cathedral and we play the same hymns just about every year, and the mass is the same just about every year, it is just a totally impressive ceremony. And that's what I think is the most impressive thing about Calvert Hall.
Well, John, I have to say, you touched on what does people say to me, what's my favorite event? That is absolutely my favorite event. And again, to our class of 2020, who's in that doubt period, one of the things we've said to them is we're going to try as best we can. We're going to do something for you. We'll wait till the end of June. We'll wait till the end of July. We'll do this, when we can, because it is I think, as you said, it really does hit the end of that 4-year period very well.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Bill?
I think if I could just address maybe two different audiences. I think for people who students or prospective students, the idea that
ignore that visitor that's showing up behind you, Bill. Just keep talking.
Joseph.
Yeah, the man behind the curtain. No, I think that there's really something for everyone at Calvert Hall. In fact, it's one of the chapter titles. That you can really find your calling in life at Calvert Hall and be supported to pursue that and excel in it. There's just, like you said, Brother John, there's no squeezing anyone into a mold or, they really let them be themselves, especially for boys. I think for males, I think Calvert Hall really understands what motivates and what drives a teenage boy. I think there's the right balance of independence and autonomy, but support. Like they're there to, after class and before class to help, but they're not going to spoon feed. They're not going to, walk you along. They're going to make you mature and make you learn how to make decisions for yourself. But yet they're always there for the help and for the support. And I think for other alumni, I would say, as much as I have loved and appreciated Calvert Hall, I think I have a greater understanding now of the value and that it brings to not only individual families, but to our society as a whole, to the Baltimore area, to the just the contributions we've made in so many areas that it's really motivated me to look for more ways to support Calvert Hall to make sure that mission can continue, because it takes a lot more than the tuition. It takes the support of alumni, time, money, energy to really keep it going and keep making these opportunities available to so many hundreds and thousands of kids who might not otherwise have an opportunity to benefit from what Calvert Hall can offer.
And I just want to make it technical. We did not bump out Lou Heydrich because he said anything we didn't like. We ran into a little more technical difficulties. And Joe Baker, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, are you ready to wrap up? I think.
Yeah, I think we're just
let me
asking to
a quick
do
wrap
the.
up.
All right, Joe's going to sneak into my spot, but as I go off, John and Lou and Bill, thank you so much for your wisdom, your stories, the history. I think I've learned some new things, and I appreciate the time. And I'll let Joe get in here.
Well, brother, it's been our pleasure, and it's been my pleasure for 46 years.
Hey, guys, thanks so much. It's a great conversation. Brother was doing a great job there as the MC. It was awesome. I think it's that show I was thinking it was ESPN. There's a show Around the Horn where they vote people off.
Yeah.
So I guess Mr. Heydrich got voted off. He didn't know he was getting voted off, but thanks, Mr. Heydrich, for being there. So, and thanks, Bill and John. But just a couple quick things for people on the stream. It's a great day for All Day Holiday. We're over 625 donors. We've raised over $154,000 to support the students at Calvert Hall. So it's just an awesome day. And this normally would be our lunch period where we have a business lunch. And our good friends at PNC Bank, Brad Borchers, Dave Schwing, two distinguished grads, would sponsor our lunch. And they say, hey, this year we're going to sponsor the live broadcast. So I really appreciate PNC's help providing this service to the whole community, and you guys coming on. It's awesome. It's awesome.
It's our pleasure. It's my pleasure. I know that.
John, next time I like Bill's house, but next time we're going to do a tour of your studio you have there. I don't know what's going on back there, but
those are
we should
all.
hit that.
I'm looking at Joyce's computer now, my wife's computer.
Yeah.
And behind her, all the toys and all the things that she has for the school is when she was principal at St. Joe's, when she was a teacher at St. Joe's, when she was a teacher at Immaculate Heart. All these things were given to her, and then she's got them. There's more of them. There's more.
Well, next time we have you on, we'll have you take us a tour through the Thaler house. So
that sounds good.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye now.
Bye.
What was happening?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
They're not off yet. We're not off yet. We're getting there. So Danielle is boxed out.
You're not live anymore with the.
Okay.
I'm just going to close them out.
Joe's gone. Now you get to see all the toys.